The state legislature debates a bill that not only defines the sexes, but also mandates who can use which restrooms on public property. We'll get details on the SAFER Act and hear some of the pushback from House Democrats.
Ain't nothing gonna make Mississippi safer by this act.
Also, the House pushes through a new effort to pass a new funding formula for public education. And we'll take a look at maternal mortality among women of color and hear from a healthcare expert about how to address disparities. That's all ahead this Sunday on Mississippi Insight. I'm Byron Brown. Thanks for joining us for the April 14th edition of Insight. Senate and House lawmakers have yet another issue to iron out in conference negotiations. This time, it's legislation that defines the sexes. SB 2753 passed the Senate on March 13th. The measure defines the sexes based on gender at birth rather than gender identity. It requires public buildings to have either exclusive male and female restrooms or unisex restrooms for individual use. And it would allow people using restrooms of the opposite sex to be sued either by individuals or the Attorney General's office. When the House took up the bill on Wednesday, Republican representatives added a strike-all amendment and rewrote it slightly. Senators rejected the rewrite and invited conference talks on resolving outstanding differences. Both chambers passed their respective versions with strong support from GOP lawmakers, but not without a vigorous debate. Here's some of Wednesday's debate on the House floor as House Judiciary A Chairman Joey Hood defended his committee's rewrite.
Does the gentleman yield?
Certainly, gentlemen.
Gentlemen, right now, is there a law against a male using a female bathroom?
I don't know if there's one on the books or not, but after we pass this piece of legislation with regard to boys and girls, it will be.
Okay.
On public property.
On public property. Okay, what will be the civil penalty? Or would it be a misdemeanor or a felony if a male get caught coming out of an empty female's bathroom on public property and vice versa?
Gentlemen, I think the way it says is they have a private cause of action. Let me refer you to the section. It basically just says they have a civil cause of action as you move it through the process, and which is good. You make a good point. What I do say this, as we have a reverse repealer in it, if you think it needs to be a felony with this body, we can vote on making it a felony to go into a boy's bathroom and a girl's bathroom. If that body, and I'll commit to this body that we can look at it being criminal if y'all want to. And so I think that may be the direction I'm going to have to head with this bill as we work it through the process. But I do appreciate you bringing that out.
Is this body ready to give the college and universities that's already underfunded the funding it needs to provide additional bathrooms for the student load and capacity when they say a male can only use a male, a female can only use a female? Because we know our historically black colleges and universities does not have the necessary funding need to improve their campuses. So when we create this law, it's incumbent upon us to provide for this law. Is that correct or incorrect, gentlemen?
Gentlemen, I really think we've already got boys' bathrooms, we already got girls' bathrooms, and we already have a unisex. I don't think it's going to cost much. I would say it probably costs $5 to put a boy sign up above the boys' girl bath, and then $5 to put a girl sign. So I'm looking probably at maybe $10 per bathroom to do it.
Okay, so the state is going to give these colleges they $10 to do it.
Gentlemen, everyone gets an annual appropriation, and I'm probably more than likely they already have an emblem on their bathroom door that says boy or girl or unisex. I don't really think it's going to cost these individuals any more because we already have current facilities in all of our state agencies and our public bodies with regard to bathrooms. I'm pretty sure that they probably have boys and girls. I can't think of a state agency around here that I went around to look at that it doesn't have a boy or a girl emblem on there. But I appreciate the question. You actually made some good points, and I plan on looking at some of those issues as we work through the process.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Like I said again, I really appreciate you taking the line and questioning. And my thing is, you do a great job of advocating, but just want you to understand the reason these questions get asked.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Because there's so many times we define what an individual or some constituent says what's a priority for the state of Mississippi. You know what I'm saying? And thank you.
I appreciate your questions. Thank you.
Gentleman from Forest, Mr. Watson.
Thank you.
Pass. Gentleman from Hines, Mr. Crudup.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The gentleman yield.
Always for you, gentlemen.
Gentlemen, I got a couple of questions. So you said that this bill is about bathrooms and restrooms, right?
Amongst other things, yes.
So what age did this begin? At what age does this begin with boys going into girls' bathrooms, or opposite way of that?
A couple minutes after you're born.
Well, the reason I'm asking this gentleman is because there's a lot of parents sometimes that may take somebody like little Joey to the restroom when he's age 5 with them, and so the question is, what are we going to do about that? What's the penalty to that?
Under Section 8 of the legislation, we do have an exception under there. There are a list of exceptions for permissible purposes to enter into those sex-designated restrooms. You can accompany a person of the opposite sex for the purpose of assisting or chaperoning a child under the age of 12. So as long as your child is 12 and younger, then the other parent could go in that bathroom. Or a vulnerable person, an individual that's defined under statute as being a vulnerable. We've got exceptions with regard to employees that work there to clean the bathrooms, and actually our medical emergency personnel, if they need to render any type of assistance, then they can go in there. And so.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Another question? There's a lot of concerts and events sometimes where people get to taking in a lot of other kind of beverages that have to go to the restroom quite often. And so if the bathroom is, full on one side, and the gentleman from Choctaw maybe has to go, the other bathroom may be full, what do you do then, gentlemen?
You better hold it, gentlemen.
Okay, thank you.
Gentleman from Washington, Mr. Hines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Gentlemen, yield.
Certainly.
Let's go back to that section you were just talking about. So if I'm traveling 49 South and I decide to stop at a rest stop, and my child has eaten something and has an upset stomach, and the men's restroom is down for maintenance and in disrepair, and I send him into the female restroom, and so he can use the restroom, and I stand at the door. Can I be charged?
Gentlemen, that would be private property. This legislation applies to public bodies.
So you telling me rest stops in this state are private property?
Oh, you're talking about I thought you said you're talking about on the side of the interstate?
Yeah.
One of those?
On 49 South, those rest stops?
Okay.
That we spent about billions and billions of dollars a few years ago.
We definitely need to put some more money into those rest stops. I think that our transportation chair has looked into doing some of that stuff, and I applaud his efforts.
The ACLU has already voiced its opposition to the SAFER Act. We'll keep you posted on the results of the expected conference negotiations on the bill. We're back in a moment. The House of Representatives is taking another shot at passing the so-called Inspire Act. It's the new funding formula designed to replace the 27-year-old Mississippi Adequate Education Program. The Senate killed the House bill earlier this month and passed a bill that would modify MAEP. But Wednesday, House Republicans took the Senate's bill, amended it with another strike all, reinserted the Inspire Act, and sent it back to the Senate. House Education Chairman Rob Robertson explained the maneuver to reporters Thursday.
Yes, we were just giving the Senate an opportunity to look at the Inspire Act one more time. We really feel very passionate about this, and we feel like this is the right thing to do for our schools. Sometimes in the heat of battle in politics, things get sideways, and this is just another opportunity for us to have this conversation and make certain that the Senate has this ability to come and look and join us in this particular bill and be a part of it. I really want to be very clear. We want them to be a part of this, and if there's things that they think need to be tightened up or changed, we want to be available and make certain that we're able to do it.
Is this the last vehicle that you'll have to try and...
This was the deadline date, so this was the proverbial last vehicle that we had to use for this purpose. Now, the Senate does have the bill that they didn't invite conference on yesterday, which is in my opinion, an ability if we could go back on that particular bill as well at some point if they invited conference on it. But the reality is this was just another opportunity to do that.
And really it's also just a statement to say, this is how much we believe in it. That
This-
we're willing to
Absolutely.
take something really unrelated to the funding formula
Right.
and put this in here.
We now, to be clear, the bill that we changed, we didn't lose that bill. That bill had a companion bill, and we will concur on that particular bill when it comes back. But this is just one more opportunity, and it was a vehicle that would have been wasted otherwise, so it was just an opportunity for us to do that. And we really do want to be hand in hand with the Senate and do something really good with this.
Any new conversations with them since yesterday and all that happened?
We've been talking. I will say, I've said this before, I'll say it again. The Senate truly wants to make education the best it can be. I think that they have maybe some opinions as to what needs to happen or what needs to change, and I do think that they would really like to have more time, and I believe that is a real thing that they're asking for. This will give us the next couple of weeks to be able to do that, and hopefully we will be able to come to terms with something.
Democrats in both House and Senate say they are not inspired at all by Robertson's bill. Senate Minority Leader Derek Simmons and House Minority Leader Robert Johnson explained their opposition in a joint interview with 12 News' Richard Lake.
I'll first start off by saying on the Senate side, as you know, Richard, the version was before the Senate, the formula, Inspire formula, and the Senate moved not to concur and also not to invite conference, basically killing the bill as of now. But we are concerned as legislative Democrats why all of those who have traditionally not supported public schools are not only the creators of the new formula, but they also the ones pushing forward for public schools now.
Yeah, look, we're glad that the Senate held their ground on that issue. And our biggest concern about Inspire is that we don't know what it is. We spent the first part of the session working with they were very open about working with us on it, but we had a constant question. We kept saying to the people on education who were promoting Inspire, just, it looks good, the numbers look good, the outcomes look good, but we don't know how you get these numbers. What is the formula? And they began to take the bill up without ever giving us a formula. So we abandoned working with them until we could get something that we could rely on. MAEP is a formula. People took years to work on that and make sure they got this down. As far as we can tell, somebody worked on this for 2 or 3 weeks, and we don't know who worked on it. We don't know what formula they used. When we asked, where do these numbers come from, they said, well, you can get all of these numbers off the MDE website. You can get all kinds of numbers off the MDE website. Our question is, how do you apply them? I can't go back home to my district and say, well, I'm getting you another $8 million. And they say, well, how are you getting it? Well, they just told me it's coming to me. That's not how this works. We have to have something we can rely on, something that guarantees equity for all schools. And MAEP may not be perfect for doing that, but at least it's a formula we understand, we know how to apply it.
Talk to me about what process y'all would like to see moving forward. I know Senator Bryan has said that he wants a years-long approach like there was with MAEP. Is this something that y'all want to see as well?
Certainly. We won't go through the same process that we went through, like Leader Johnson said, when we developed MAEP back in 1997. It was a deliberate process. It was a process that was tested. It was tried. It was true. It's a process that we've been dealing with for nearly 30 years. It's a consistent way of funding our schools, and we want to do everything we can to do that. When you're talking about a formula that we really don't know how was it created, it hadn't been tested, it hadn't been tried, that is very concerning for us. And anytime, I'd say this, Richard, anytime you have the governor, the American for Prosperity, Center for Public Policy, Empower, again, these groups and our state leader who all have traditionally not supported public schools to come forward to say they are all in favor of Inspire, that gives us pause.
Yeah, and back to what Derek said, and Senator Bryan said, if Inspire is great, well, let's spend the summer, let's spend the out of session working on it. Bring all of the players to the table, all of the advocates, all the people who have an interest in public education, and let us all work on it together. If Inspire truly is a better way to get this done, let us all have a hand in it, and let's tweak MAEP or make Inspire a better formula. But let's all work on it together. Just don't shove it down our throats and tell us it's a good idea when we have no way of examining whether it is or not.
It is no secret that women giving birth in Mississippi have a very high vulnerability to poor outcomes, including death of the mother herself. And that is known as maternal mortality. And nowhere else in the nation is it more dangerous to give birth, particularly for black women, than here in Mississippi. The state health department said that at last report, black non-Hispanic women had a maternal mortality rate 4 times higher than whites. Chanel Porchia Albert is the founder of Ancient Song Doula Services. That group is focused on addressing racial disparities in maternal health. She spoke with 12 News' Tao Ta.
First off, can you just explain the doula's role and how it contributes to the overall health and well-being of expecting mothers?
Yeah, so the doula acts kind of like a navigator, right? We assist individuals in being able to center themselves through their reproductive health choices, providing information, education, so that they can make an informed decision about their care, as well as supporting them through comfort measures. And when we're talking about supporting Black, Brown, and Indigenous communities, we're really talking about also acting as an advocate within the birth room and helping someone to prepare for childbirth, what they will experience during the act of childbirth, and then centering them during the postpartum period.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. What are some of the key factors that contribute to the higher maternal mortality rates, you would say, among women of color?
I would say we're looking at racism, right? We're looking at the impact of racism within society, right? And that allostatic load of stress, right, that happens over time. Because regardless of socioeconomic standing, regardless of level education, Black women far worse than white women. So you can have a Black woman with a college degree who is at a high socioeconomic standing, who still fares worse than a white woman who only has a high school diploma.
What is your personal experience when it comes to some of the challenges that women of color face in accessing quality prenatal and postnatal care?
I think it is happening on many different fronts, and so it's not just one. I think we have to look at the ways in which providers are educated, and centering a framework of cultural humility in the ways in which we are meeting patients where they are, not where we expect them to be, and learning with a patient. I think we're also looking at institutional reform and policies, and so how are hospital-based institutions being able to center the needs of individuals, understanding, sometimes less interventions are better, right, than more. And then we're looking at it from a legislative perspective. What are some of the policies that are affecting reproductive health access? In the state of Mississippi, we find that there's reproductive restrictions, right? And the more restrictions that you have, the greater the maternal mortality rate tends to be, right? And so we can't center a framework where we are not allowing individuals to be able to center their bodily autonomy and their basic human right to birth in an affirming way, but also parent in ways that are, grounded in community, that are grounded in hope, and that are well resourced as well. We have, in rural communities, they face maternity care deserts. They face, a crisis in not having enough providers to be able to serve within their communities, right? And so if you're not investing in the infrastructure, right, you're going to have poor outcomes. If you're not centering a community-based model of care where you're really looking at, how community is being able to navigate these systems, then you're going to continue to see these numbers continue to rise over time.
So how does your work of a doula, again, just help address these challenges and potentially reduce maternal mortality rates?
Yeah, so we are meeting with individuals prenatally. We're going through understanding childbirth, labor progress. We're connecting them to resources, right? We're looking at the whole person. We're creating care plans, right? What is this plan telling me? Is this plan telling me that, I'm working with someone who may be unhoused? Am I working with someone who has food insecurity? Well, if that is the case, and maybe your primary focus is on making sure that you have the necessities you need, in order to live and survive, well, then you need to address those first. And so we're connecting them to other community-based partnerships, right? Where in places that we know are safe, right? We're not just saying, oh, here's a reference. It's like when you know, your girlfriend, she's like, hey, go there. You know what I mean? Go to that place. And you're like, oh, did you go? And she's like, nah, I never been there before, but I heard, right? We're taking that guesswork out, and we're, you know, taking it a step further. We're checking into those references. We're making sure that we're connecting with folks so that when we are supporting them through, you know, from the time they walk in the door until the time we don't see them anymore, up to 1 year, you know, we are following them in their progress. We're providing that, again, that support that oftentimes we don't get from family members either. You know, if you are, you know, far away from home, or maybe you don't have anyone to support you, what does it mean to have someone who is offering non-judgmental support to really come in and center the mother? Right? And it's really about, it's a traditional practice. A doula is not something new. You know, traditionally, we've always had folks in our communities who have, when someone knew somebody was getting pregnant, you would have someone who was getting herbs. You'd have someone who was making sure that the house was in order. You had someone who was like prepping and arranging for the arrival of this child, but also ensuring the safety and the health of the mother's well-being. And what the doula essentially is doing is bringing those aspects into that care while also helping people to navigate our healthcare landscape.
All right, Chanel, thank you so much for your time.
We'll be back next weekend with more of the political and current affairs coverage that you demand. I'm Byron Brown from all of us here at 12 News. Make it a great weekend.